Imagine this. You're a server in a packed restaurant, the kind where the air smells like garlic bread and the clatter of plates never stops. You're juggling trays, dodging kids running through the aisles, and smiling through the chaos, all for a paycheck that barely covers rent. Your best friend, another server, is working just as hard, pouring her heart into every table. Then, a group of guys you vaguely know from high school struts in, orders a feast, and pulls the ultimate betrayal. They dine and dash, leaving a $70 bill that your friend might have to cover out of her own pocket. That kind of disrespect makes your blood boil, doesn't it? I felt that rage, too, burning in my chest like a fire I couldn't put out. But I wasn't about to let those jerks get away with it. I had a plan, one so simple, so perfectly petty, it would hit them where it hurt most. Want to know how I turned their smug getaway into a lesson they'd never forget? Stick around, because this revenge story is about to get juicy. If you've ever been stabbed in the back by someone you thought you could trust, or even just someone you knew from way back, and dreamed of serving them a cold, hard dose of justice, you're in the right place. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and get ready for a story that'll have you cheering by the end. This is a tale of betrayal, quick thinking, and the kind of revenge that feels so good, it'll leave you grinning from ear to ear. Let's dive in. My name's Emma, and I grew up in a mid-sized town in Michigan. It's not some tiny village where everyone knows your grandma's maiden name, but it's small enough that you're bound to run into someone you recognize at the grocery store, the gas station, or the local Italian joint where I worked. Bella Vita was the kind of restaurant where families came for birthdays, couples had awkward first dates, and groups of friends laughed too loud over plates of lasagna. The red checkered tablecloths, the smell of marinara sauce simmering in the kitchen, the hum of chatter, it was homey, but it was also chaos. As a server, I was always on my feet, balancing trays of steaming pasta, refilling wine glasses, and dodging complaints about too much garlic or not enough ice. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Barely. I'd been at Bella Vita for a little over a year, and the job had taught me a lot: how to fake a smile when a customer snaps at you, how to carry 4 plates at once without dropping them, and how to spot trouble from a mile away. That last one was key in a town like ours. I'd gone to 3 different school districts growing up, so my social circle was a tangled web of faces. Kids I'd sat next to in algebra, friends of friends from parties, guys I'd seen at football games but never really talked to. Thanks to Facebook, I was connected to just about everyone. And I mean everyone. If I knew your name, I could probably find your mom's profile in under 5 minutes. That's not just a skill, it's a superpower. My best friend at work was Sarah. She was a few years older than me, with a laugh that could light up a room and a knack for charming even the grumpiest customers. Sarah had this way of making you feel like everything was going to be okay, even when the kitchen was backed up and the manager was breathing down your neck. We'd bonded over late-night shifts, sneaking bites of garlic bread in the break room and swapping stories about our lives. Sarah was saving up to move out of her parents' house, dreaming of a little apartment where she could finally have some space of her own. Every tip she earned was a step toward that dream, so when I saw her stressed, it hit me hard. She didn't deserve to be treated like dirt, especially not by people we knew. It was a Friday night, one of those shifts where the restaurant was a madhouse. The dining room was packed, the kitchen was slamming out orders, and every server was running on pure adrenaline. I was in the zone, weaving through tables with a pitcher of water in one hand and a tray of breadsticks in the other, when I spotted them. A group of 4 guys, strolling in like they owned the place. I froze for a second, my eyes narrowing. I knew them. Not well, but enough to recognize their faces. Jake, the ringleader, had been in my chem class senior year, always cracking jokes and never doing his homework. The other 3, Tyler, Matt, and Chris, were his buddies, the kind of guys who'd show up to parties with a 6-pack and act like they were the life of the night. They were loud, cocky, dressed in ripped jeans and backward caps, reeking of cheap cologne that hit you from 10 feet away. My stomach twisted. I'd learned to trust that feeling, that little warning bell in my gut that said trouble was coming. They got sat in Sarah's section, at table 12, right by the window. I watched from across the room as they ordered like they were at a buffet. Plates of lasagna, a mountain of garlic bread, 2 large pizzas with extra toppings, and a round of Cokes. The bill was climbing fast, probably hitting $60 or $70 for the 4 of them. Sarah was her usual sunny self, laughing at their dumb jokes, making sure their glasses stayed full, even when they snapped their fingers at her like she was their personal maid. I could see the way they leaned back in their chairs, smirking, like they were in on some big secret. My heart started to race. I'd seen that look before, and it never meant anything good. Halfway through their meal, I caught Jake whispering to the others, his eyes darting toward the exit. Tyler kept checking his phone, like he was waiting for a signal. Chris went to the bathroom and didn't come back. Matt was fidgeting, his leg bouncing under the table. My palms started to sweat. I knew exactly what was coming. I'd heard stories from other servers about dine and dashers, people who'd scarf down a meal and bolt without paying, leaving the server to deal with the consequences. At Bella Vita, the policy was brutal. If a table walked out on their bill, the server could be forced to cover it out of their own tips. It was a garbage rule, one that made us feel like we were being punished for someone else's crime. Sarah didn't deserve that, not after pouring her heart into every shift, not when every dollar she earned was going toward her dream. Sure enough, as soon as they'd polished off the last slice of pizza, they made their move. Jake stood up first, stretching like he was just taking a casual stroll. Tyler and Matt followed, their laughter echoing as they headed for the door. Chris was already outside, probably waiting in the car. They moved fast, weaving through the tables, their sneakers squeaking on the tile floor. The whole restaurant went quiet for a second, the clatter of forks and chatter fading as people realized what was happening. Sarah stood by the kitchen, her tray trembling in her hands, her face pale as a ghost. I could see the panic in her eyes, the kind that comes when you know you're about to lose a chunk of your paycheck for something that wasn't your fault. I rushed over to her, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Sarah, are you okay?" I asked, even though I knew she wasn't. Her voice was barely above a whisper, shaking like she was holding back tears. "That was my table. I might have to pay for this. That's, like, $70. Emma, I can't afford that." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms until it hurt. Those jerks didn't just steal a meal, they stole from Sarah, someone who'd done nothing but treat them with kindness. And worse, they thought they could get away with it, probably laughing about it in their car right now, high-fiving each other like they'd pulled off some grand heist. My blood was boiling, my mind racing. Have you ever felt that kind of anger, where it's not just about what happened, but about the sheer unfairness of it all? That's where I was, standing in the middle of that chaotic dining room, watching my friend try not to break. As Sarah stood there, trying to hold it together while the manager loomed nearby, muttering about server responsibility, I felt something snap inside me. I'd dealt with entitled people before, customers who'd yell about cold soup or leave a penny as a tip, but this was different. This was personal. These weren't strangers. These were guys I knew, guys who'd gone to the same schools, hung out with the same crowds. They thought they could waltz into our restaurant, disrespect my friend, and walk away without a care. No way. Not on my watch. I pulled Sarah aside, away from the chaos of the dining room, into the corner by the coffee machine where the servers hid to catch their breath. "Don't worry," I told her, my voice low but steady. "I know who they are. I'm going to make this right." Her eyes widened, a flicker of hope breaking through the stress. "What are you gonna do, Emma?" I smirked, already feeling the gears turning in my head. Let's just say I've got a secret weapon. And it's called Facebook. Back in the break room, I whipped out my phone, my fingers flying across the screen as I opened Facebook. In a town like ours, everyone's connected. 6 degrees of separation? More like 2. I knew Jake and his buddies from high school, which meant I was probably friends with them on Facebook, or at least close enough to find them. Sure enough, after a quick search, I found Jake's profile. His smug grin stared back at me from his profile picture, like he was daring me to do something. I could practically hear him laughing about their free meal, probably thinking he was untouchable. I typed out a message, keeping it short and sharp. Hey, Jake. I know you and your friends dined and dashed at Bella Vita tonight. You need to come back and pay for your meal. That bill's on Sarah, and that's not cool. I hit send and waited, my heart pounding like a drum. Part of me hoped he'd reply, maybe apologize and promise to make it right. But deep down, I knew better. Guys like Jake don't feel remorse, they feel invincible. Sure enough, the message sat there, marked as seen but unanswered. He'd left me on read, probably chuckling to himself, thinking he'd gotten away with it. That's when I grinned, a slow, wicked grin that spread across my face. If Jake thought he could ignore me, he was about to get a reality check. I scrolled through his profile, clicking on his tagged photos until I found what I was looking for, a family picture from last Christmas, Jake standing next to a woman with his same dark hair and sharp jawline. His mom, Karen. A quick search confirmed it. She was active on Facebook, posting about her book club, her garden, and how proud she was of her sweet boy. Oh, Karen, I thought. You're about to get a wake-up call. I typed out a message, polite but pointed. Hi, Karen. I'm a server at Bella Vita, and I'm reaching out because your son Jake and his friends left without paying their $70 bill tonight. It's a tough situation for our server, who might have to cover it herself. I thought you'd want to know. I hit send, then repeated the process for the other 3 guys. Tyler's mom, Linda, was a nurse who loved sharing motivational quotes. Matt's mom, Susan, was all about her church group. Chris's mom, Diane, posted pictures of her golden retriever every other day. Each message was calm, professional, but firm. I wasn't about to let these guys hide behind their keyboards. As I put my phone down, a wave of satisfaction washed over me, like a cool breeze after a hot day. I could almost picture their moms' faces, the shock and disappointment as they read my messages. These weren't just random customers, they were guys who'd grown up in our town, who should have known better. And now, their moms were about to remind them of that. Have you ever had that moment where you know you've set something in motion, something that's going to hit like a freight train? That's what I felt, sitting there in the break room, the hum of the restaurant fading into the background. The next day, I was back at Bella Vita, wiping down tables during a slow lunch shift. The restaurant was quieter now, just a few regulars sipping coffee and reading the paper. I was still buzzing from the night before, wondering if my messages had landed. Then Sarah burst into the break room, her eyes wide with excitement, practically bouncing on her toes. "Emma, you're not gonna believe this," she said, her voice high with glee. "Jake's mom showed up this morning. She paid the entire bill, $68.47, in cash, and apologized like crazy." I laughed out loud, a rush of triumph flooding my chest. "No way. What did she say?" Sarah grinned, mimicking Karen's stern tone. She said, "I'm so sorry, my son knows better than this. I've already grounded him for a month, and he's going to be washing dishes to pay me back." She was furious, Emma. Like, I thought she was gonna march him in here herself. I could imagine it so clearly, Jake, sitting at home, probably expecting to get away with his stunt, only to have his mom storm in, her face like thunder. I pictured him stammering, trying to explain himself as Karen laid into him about responsibility and respect. The thought was so satisfying, I couldn't stop smiling. It was like I'd reached into his world and flipped it upside down, all with a few taps on my phone. Over the next few days, the fallout kept coming, like dominoes falling one by one. Linda, Tyler's mom, messaged me back on Facebook. "Thank you for letting me know. My son will be making this right." Susan, Matt's mom, dragged him back to the restaurant to apologize in person. He stood there, his face red as a tomato, muttering, "Sorry, it won't happen again," while Sarah nodded politely, barely hiding her smirk. Diane, Chris's mom, posted a vague but pointed status about raising kids to do better, and I knew she'd given him an earful. Each mom was a force of nature, and I'd unleashed them like a pack of avenging angels. Sarah was over the moon. The bill was covered, and she didn't have to pay a cent out of her own pocket. But more than that, she felt seen, like someone had her back. And me? I felt like a mastermind. Those guys thought they could disrespect my friend and walk away? Not in my town. Not when I've got Facebook and a knack for finding moms. But here's the thing, this wasn't the only time I pulled this trick. A few months later, I was working a shift at a different restaurant, a diner called Rosie's, all chrome counters and neon signs, the kind of place that served pancakes the size of your head. I'd picked up some extra shifts there to save up for a car, and it was a similar vibe, busy, chaotic, and full of familiar faces. One night, another group of guys I vaguely knew pulled the same stunt. They ordered burgers, fries, milkshakes, the works, racking up a $55 bill, then bolted out the back door while the server, a sweet girl named Mia, was in the kitchen. I saw the whole thing go down, and that same fire lit up inside me. Mia was new, barely 18, and she was freaking out, tears in her eyes as she realized she might have to cover the bill. I remembered that feeling, that helpless anger from Sarah's night at Bella Vita, and I wasn't about to let it happen again. I grabbed my phone, found the guys' profiles, and, sent messages to their moms. This time, I added a little flair. "Hi, Mrs. Thompson," I wrote to one. "Just wanted to let you know your son Ryan and his friends left Rosie's without paying their $55 bill. Our server's really upset, and I know you'd want to hear about this." I sent similar messages to the other moms, then sat back and waited for the fireworks. The next morning, Ryan's mom, Janet, marched into Rosie's, her purse clutched tight and her face like a storm cloud. She slapped $60 on the counter, enough to cover the bill and a tip, and said, "My son will be hearing about this. Thank you for telling me." Mia was stunned, her jaw practically on the floor. I just smiled, feeling that same rush of victory. Word started to spread among the servers at Rosie's and Bella Vita. "Don't mess with Emma," they'd whisper, half joking, half odd. "She'll find your mom." Looking back, those moments weren't just about the money. They were about standing up for people like Sarah and Mia, people who work hard and don't deserve to be treated like doormats. They were about showing guys like Jake and Ryan that actions have consequences, even if it's just a phone call from an angry mom. In a world where people get away with so much, there's something so satisfying about serving up a little justice, one Facebook message at a time. Karma doesn't always come fast, but when it does, it's sweeter than a slice of Bella Vita's tiramisu. Have you ever had to teach someone a lesson like this? Drop it in the comments, I want to hear your stories. If this tale of petty revenge gave you chills or made you laugh, smash that like button and let us know in the comments, what's the most satisfying payback you've ever pulled off or seen? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another story like this. We've got more Reddit revenge tales coming your way, and trust me, they're just as juicy. See you in the next video.